These are this afternoon's top stories. Federation observes International Day of Older Persons. Inmates dead in prison explosion in St. Lucia. And CDC sounds the alarm over unvaccinated pregnant women. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Friday, 1st October 2021. I'm Carla Barrage. We begin with news on the national scene. St. Kitts and Nevis joined the rest of the world on Friday to recognize the global celebration of International Day of Older Persons. This occasion is observed on October 1st each year. In an address to the nation, Minister of Social Development and Gender Affairs, Honorable Eugene Hamilton, expressed delight in celebrating the contributions of persons 62 years and over, as they are key custodians and repositories of our nation's history and culture. He mentioned that International Day of Older Persons is also used to bring awareness to issues such as ageism that affect older persons.
Ageism marginalizes and excludes older people in every aspect of society, including, more often than not, the occupational, economic, and social spheres. Even now, as we navigate COVID-19 and adapt to the new technologically dependent lifestyles, many older persons are disenfranchised due to the digital divide that exists among generations.
Minister Hamilton, United Nations is celebrating International Day of Older Persons under the theme Digital Equity for All Ages. He said this, quote, affirms the need for access and participation in the digital world for older persons. He concluded by issuing a clarion call to citizens and residents to assist the ministry in protecting the human rights of all of our senior citizens. Minister of Public Infrastructure, Deputy Prime Minister Honorable Sean Richards, said Phase 2 of the traffic lights project in Bastille will be further delayed. During the Prime Minister's press conference on September 28th, Deputy Prime Minister Richards said that there was a decision taken to further delay the commissioning of the traffic lights.
As we are aware, all of the lights for what has been termed as the second phase have been installed. However, a decision was taken not to commission the lights. The reason why that particular decision was taken is that in the first instance, we were doing some work on the Bird Rock and Bay Road junction. That work to some extent is still incomplete. The reason why that work is still incomplete is that a particular business entity has indicated that it would be negatively affected by the installation or the commissioning of the traffic light.
He added that this issue is currently before the government's legal department for legal advice.
Until that matter has been settled, we took the decision not to commission the lights. Ideally, we would want all of the traffic lights to be turned on at the very same time.
Phase 2 of the street lights were installed at the junction of Wellington Road and Dickinson Street, the intersection of College Street and Keon Street, and the intersection of College Street and the Bay Road. And finally, on the local scene, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB, and the Regional Security System Asset Recovery Unit, RSSARU, is inviting persons across the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union to participate in the 2022 Creative Youth Competition, which will focus on poetry. The ECCB RSSARU Creative Youth Competition is designed to allow students aged 13 to 19 in the 8 ECC member countries the opportunity to demonstrate their creativity, critical thinking skills, and talents through various genres including essay writing, poetry, songwriting, and art. Senior Corporate Relations Officer at the ECCB, Elizabeth Wayland, shared how the competition came about.
We call on secondary school teachers throughout the sub-region and engage them in discussion on what they thought would be the ideal format for a competition geared towards our young minds. After much deliberation, it was decided that a competition that was much more inclusive, where students who had various interests could participate. The competition would include different genres, including essay writing, art, poetry, songwriting, and others. The theme would change each year to attract a wide range of interests. And so, the ECCB Creative Youth Competition was born.
Students who wish to participate in the poetry competition will be required to produce their very own poem on one of three topics: the entrepreneur, skills equal money, and my vision for my Caribbean home. The entries will be judged in two categories, ages 13 to 16 and 17 to 19, and will be assessed on focus on the selected topics, creativity, imagery, and spelling and punctuation. Cash prizes, tokens, and trophies amounting to $26,000 will be awarded to the top three winners, their respective schools, and teachers who mentor the students in the preparation of their submissions. The entries for the Creative Youth Competition must be submitted via the submissions portal at www.eccb-centralbank.org no later than 31st January 2022. And we're moving now to news on the regional scene. In St. Lucia, one inmate is dead due to an explosion at the Bordelais Correctional Facility on Wednesday. More in this DBS report.
The explosion at the Bordelais Correctional Facility has left one inmate dead. The deceased has been identified as 23-year-old Johan Henry. Henry died as a result of the explosion, which occurred in the tailor shop of the facility. According to inmates, Henry was about to celebrate his 24th birthday. Fire personnel responded to the incident.
Personnel at the Dennery Fire Station received a call at 10:40 a.m. on Wednesday 29th September from the Bordelais Correctional Facility. The information received stated that an inmate had been injured as a result of an explosion. The individual, who was found lying face down on the floor, was pronounced dead by a medical practitioner. Subsequently, the scene was left in the care of the police.
Director of the correctional facility, Hilary Herman, gave a brief statement on the matter.
Good morning. Hilary Herman, Director of Corrections. I would like to confirm that we had an industrial accident this morning at the Bordelais Correctional Facility in the tailor shop. The fire service, EMT, and police department was called in. The situation has just been unfolded as we speak, so further information will be put out later on today.
In the past 2 weeks, 3 inmates have lost their lives while incarcerated at the correctional facility. The facility has been in the spotlight following separate stabbing incidents which resulted in the deaths of 2 male inmates in the same week. 21-year-old Noah Peter of Mondedon was stabbed to death, and so was 45-year-old Kevin Wilson, a mentally challenged inmate. The police are carrying out their investigation into this latest incident. For the DBS News World, I am Alex Bousquet.
The possibility of Jamaicans using or selling fake vaccination cards is a looming concern, one that will not be tolerated by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. More in this CVM Live News report.
Headlines coming out from foreign countries tell the tale of people working the system and making illicit profit by producing fake vaccination cards. And as more employers mandate vaccination for their employees, concern grows about the production of counterfeit cards in the country, cards that Jamaicans may use to commit fraud.
We have had internal discussions on it for our team to be vigilant and to determine, to the extent that we can, if this is in fact taking place, and if it is, clearly we'll deal with it. It is a criminal matter.
Minister Tufton assures that the validity of cards can be checked through a database the ministry uses to keep track of vaccinations. Looking to the long term, however, adapting vaccination information in a digital format is an inevitability.
We are looking at how we can move from a paper-based signature and stamped to a more digitized approach.
Though some fully vaccinated citizens feel safe against the COVID-19 virus, they aren't protected from discrimination in travel. Recently, the UK announced that the vaccination program in Jamaica was not recognized in their travel advisory. The Ministry of Health and Wellness says global partners in health will have to find a universal solution.
Our capacity as a country to interact with other countries for trade or otherwise, like the US, is going to be impacted if we do not conform to those standards that require validation of vaccination. It then raises now the issue of how do you prove that you are? And I think the international community through the WHO and others, there are multilateral partners and countries, will have to come up with a standard format that we will all comply with.
Janelle Powell, CVM Live.
And we're moving now to news on the international scene. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issued an advisory encouraging pregnant women to get vaccinated, warning they were at higher risk of severe illness from COVID-19. More in this Reuters report.
In a new COVID-19 alert, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention called for, quote, urgent action to vaccinate pregnant women. The advisory issued Wednesday stressed that not only are the vaccines safe and effective in pregnancy, but that pregnant and recently pregnant people infected with the novel coronavirus are at, quote, increased risk for severe illness compared with non-pregnant people.
Pregnant people compared to non-pregnant people have an increased risk when they get SARS-CoV-2 infection of hospitalization, ICU admission, the need for mechanical ventilation, and they have a higher risk of dying.
Dr. Emily Miller teaches maternal fetal medicine at Northwestern University. She says recommendations were originally not stronger because pregnant women were excluded from the first vaccine clinical trials.
Scientists around the country have been working tirelessly to fill those gaps, and we're at a point where the medical community really feel like we have the sufficient data to say that this is safe and that we recommend it.
Misinformation about COVID-19 treatments and vaccines has fueled hesitancy among a significant proportion of Americans. The CDC's call for action comes after data showed the percentage of pregnant people who are fully vaccinated in the U.S. was just 31% as of the middle of September. Among non-Hispanic African American women who are pregnant, the percentage who are fully vaccinated drops to just under 16%. The advisory said that as of this week, more than 125,000 laboratory-confirmed COVID-19 cases have been reported in pregnant people, including more than 22,000 hospitalized cases and 161 deaths. The CDC said that numbers from August showed the greatest number of coronavirus deaths among pregnant people in any month of the pandemic so far.
U.S. President Joe Biden signed legislation to avoid a federal shutdown and keep the government funded through December 3rd. More in this report.
On this vote, the yeas are 65, the nays are 35. The 60 vote threshold having been achieved, the bill is passed.
Congress voted to avoid a partial government shutdown on Thursday with just hours to go before a midnight deadline, approving a stopgap bill to fund federal operations through early December. But while one potential fiscal crisis was averted, Democrats quickly turned their attention to a much more consequential one, raising the nation's debt limit. On Thursday, Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer criticized the Republicans in the chamber, who multiple times this week blocked a bid by Democrats to prevent a potentially crippling U.S. credit default.
Once again, just as our Republican colleagues realized that a government shutdown would be catastrophic, they should realize that a default on the national debt would be even worse. Despite Republican intransigence, the facts have not changed. We must raise the debt ceiling. We cannot allow America to default.
Schumer said that a vote to raise the debt ceiling could come as early as next week. On Wednesday, the Democratically controlled House of Representatives approved a measure to raise it through the end of 2022.
We are proceeding.
Meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi faced a revolt from progressive Democrats who pushed back against President Joe Biden's $1 trillion infrastructure plan until a larger $3.5 trillion domestic investment bill is nailed down. Moderate Democratic Senator Joe Manchin complicated the effort on Thursday, saying his top line for the larger social spending bill was $1.5 trillion, a much smaller number that could not only stretch out negotiations for weeks or even longer, but also jeopardize Biden's legislative agenda entirely.
And now for the weather. Present weather is fair. Winds today will be from the southeast at 12 to 18 miles per hour, with gusts possibly reaching 30 miles per hour. Tonight, winds are expected from the east-southeast at 13 to 21 miles per hour, with gusts possibly peaking near 32 miles per hour. Seas are 1 to 1.5 meters or 3 to 5 feet, with swells of 1.5 meters or 5 feet. The weather forecast for St. Kitts and Nevis today predicts mostly cloudy skies with a 70% or high chance of showers. There is also a 40% or moderate chance of thunderstorms. Tonight will be mostly cloudy with a 70% or high chance of showers. Sunset today will be at 5:59 p.m., sunrise tomorrow at 6:01 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for joining us. I'm Carla Barrage.